Another day is here, and you're ready for it. What to wear? Check. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Check. Planning for what's next and how to save for it? That's where Bank of America can help. For your financial to-dos, Bank of America has experts ready to help get you closer to your goals. Get started at one of our local financial centers or 24/7 in our mobile banking app. Find a location near you at bankofamerica.com/talktous. What would you like the power to do? Mobile banking requires downloading the app and is only available for select devices. Message and data rates may apply. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
There's a lot that could impress you about the all-new Honda Prologue EV. True, it's got class-leading passenger space and clean, thoughtful design and intuitive technology. But what really sets the Prologue apart from the competition is that it's more than an EV. It's a Honda. Honda, the power of dreams. Visit honda.com/prologue to learn more.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Pro Plus on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, all alone as always. So, purpose of this, as opposed to doing it as a daily read, was just to take some time, look at the positions that we need players for, look at positions that we want players for, and just maybe go into some lists of players that could fit in said position. So let's start with the most obvious one. It's that defensive midfield position, where we very clearly have an enormous need. Last summer, we tried to get Lavia, tried to get Caicedo, ended up with Endo. No disrespect to the fella, but he's not a starting quality defensive midfielder for a team that has ambitions to win anything of real note. Obviously, different manager this year, so potentially different desires from that defensive midfield role. But I've got a list here of 7. I think all of them are worth consideration. Now, one of them, you're going to have to bear with me because pronouncing his name is a little bit difficult, but we're going to start with the obvious ones. Alan Varela of Porto. He's only been at Porto for a year, was at Boca before that, was outstanding for them, was excellent for Porto last season. I know some people have some doubts about his size. He's 5'10". He wins 60% of his aerials, which is about the same as Fabinho was winning for Liverpool, in and around the same volume as well. For context, Declan Rice wins 50% of his aerials on the same amount. Speaking of Declan Rice, Varela absolutely monstered him in the Champions League this year and made him look very, very average. Was outstanding in those games. A lot of people are judging him, though, based on what they've watched for Porto, which is him in a more conservative type of role. But that is a function of a Conceição midfield. If you go and look at him when he played for Boca, he played as more of a destroyer. And that gives you an idea that he can do either, whichever one you want him to be. Do you want him to be more of a Rodri, or do you want him to be more of an Ederson type? He can be either. He's not as big as Rodri, but from a skill set point of view, there's a lot of similarities. Statistically, they're very similar as well. but he can go and do that destroyer role if that's what you're asking him to do. Now, I like him sitting in midfield, just protecting that defence, breaking play up, reading the game at a very high level, anticipating things, always being in the right position, funneling runners into the fullback slots so that others can make that challenge. Too many people get caught up in tackles and interception numbers, and that's not really a way to judge a defensive midfielder, primarily because interceptions are a dreadful stat. Unless you can show me a statistic for interceptions missed, or how many times a player attempted an interception, didn't get anywhere close to it and left his team exposed, I don't want to see it, because Lucas Leiva used to rank really highly in interceptions, and yet he would miss 3 to 4 a game and leave his team hugely exposed and leave us wide open in the middle. So, proof of concept, it's a dreadful stat. Tackles-wise, again, look at the best defensive midfielders over the last decade. Rodri and Sergio Busquets, they're the top two. And look at how many tackles they were making per 90 minutes. Very, very low numbers. The reason being, they're more about containment. They're not destroyers. They're not going to go and commit themselves to a challenge that could potentially lead to gaps in behind. What they're going to go and do is meet that runner and lead him into a different position where somebody else can make that challenge. The outcome is the same. The team wins the ball back, but the path to getting there is more team friendly. You're not risking leaving big swaths of space in behind. So Varela for me would be number one. I think he's on ball, outstanding, off ball, excellent. And as I say, if you want him to go and be that destroyer, that is something he can do. It's something he's done, something he's proven he can do with Boca Juniors. And he did it at a high level there in the Libertadores. So he's absolutely number one for me. Second on my list at this point now would be Morten Hjulmand, 25 years of age at Sporting. He's 6'1", so for those with the height fetish, he might fix that. He was excellent at Lecce in a non-possession team, just as a pure defensive midfielder in there to win the ball back. And then Lecce would aimlessly boot it down the pitch and just wait for the opposition to attack again, because that's how they played. He went to Sporting. He's had 1 year there under Amorim, and he thrived in a heavy possession team. And then we saw him go to the Euros and absolutely dominate England. And he dominated Declan Rice in that midfield battle. And it showed that he's very, very comfortable in the ball, very capable, good passer, clever use of the ball. Like I say, he's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's good in the air. He ticks a lot of boxes for you as well. I don't think he's the level of player Varela is on the ball. I think as a defensive presence off the ball, as in, positional sense, anticipation, reading the game, I think Varela's a notch ahead. But on the ball, in terms of actually going to win it back, if that's what you're looking for, he would be a step ahead, I would say, of Varela. He is 25 years of age. He's approaching his prime, whereas Varela is only 23, just turned a couple of weeks ago. So Varela still has time to develop that side of his game more. I think Hjulmand, he ticks most of the boxes. Now, I know he has a high buyout clause, but there's potential there that can be negotiated down. Similar with Varela, he's got a buyout clause, but maybe it can be negotiated down. Ederson of Atalanta, there's no surprise here. These are the names we've all been talking about for weeks. As a pure ball winner, he's going to be the second best on this list. And I'm only including one other one because he hasn't yet moved, but I think he is going somewhere else. A lot of people say Ederson's not a defensive midfielder. If you watch him play for Salernitana, he clearly is. If you watched him pre-move to Europe, he clearly is. At Atalanta, the midfielders are just given box-to-box roles. That is the system of Gasperini. You look at the others that have been in that shape before him and Koopmeiners, and even like Martin de Roon, who's gone back there. Their role was to do a bit of everything. That's what Gasperini wants from them. But there's no question that fella can be a pure defensive midfielder if that's what you want him to be. He's obviously a very, very good ball winner. He's comfortable in the ball. He's not an expansive passer, but he keeps it neat and tight. He keeps it simple. He's comfortable to receive on the turn, and he can get things moving in the quick direction. If you're looking for someone to do a job similar to what Caicedo would have done, it's probably him. If that's the profile, it's probably him. He's not quite as good as Caicedo is at getting the ball on the half turn and moving it immediately, but he is good there. He's probably a little bit quicker across the ground, but very similar stylistically. I think he's a really good option for us. The only ball winner who'd be better than him is obviously Manuel Ugarte. Now, he might be going to Manchester United. We don't know as yet. Romano wants you to believe that he's agreed personal terms. There's no evidence of that. We'll see what happens. United have today been linked with Yusuf Fofana, I think. They've been linked with a couple of other players since the Ugarte stuff began. They may well get him. Him and Mainoo's a horrible fit together, both on and off the ball, because they're both roaming destroyer types, though Mainoo's obviously not a real ball winner, but he wants to go and be aggressive and press, and Ugarte wants to go and win the ball high up. It's going to leave them exposed in front of the defence. They're not good progressive passers either. Now, Ugarte's better on the ball than people give him credit for, but he does get the yips a little bit if he's pressed from behind, and he will default to just passing back, a little bit like Rice in the Euros, a little bit like Henderson in his entire career. They're not players that are comfortable receiving the ball in the half turn. He's not either. So that's the one knock at him. But when he's facing play, he's a good passer. He makes the right decisions. And even, again, when getting pressed, he does make the right decisions. He makes sure he finds a teammate with the ball. He's very strong, so he's not easily knocked off it. And he has improved on the ball over the last few years. What Amorim got originally when he joined from Famalicão was a player that was not at all comfortable on the ball. And Amorim made him very comfortable in certain situations, but there was more work to do, and unfortunately, he went to PSG where he plays under a bad coach who hasn't worked on that with him. The next obvious name then is Martin Zubimendi. Now, I'm not overly enamoured with the idea of a Zubimendi Alexis double pivot, just because I worry about the lack of mobility. But he is an outstanding footballer. And he's good in the air. Like he wins like 65% of his aerials on decent numbers. And let's be honest, aerials are overrated for midfield players anyway. The two best aerial players we had under Klopp were Ginny and Thiago. Both of them are like 5'8", 5'9". So it's not something to worry about. Zubimendi's good in the air. He's strong. He reads the game brilliantly. He's 25. He's a more developed version of Varela. But Varela's a more physical player than him, and Varela has better mobility than him. But Zubi's a better passer of the ball and slightly more advanced in terms of that off-ball stuff because he's just older and more experienced. I would be in favour of Zubimendi. I think if you get him at his buyout cost, which I think is 50 million, and convince him to make the move, I think he would be exceptional in the Premier League. Again, I'd have some concerns about the Zubimendi Alexis double pivot, but you can mitigate that if you're playing a really defensive left back, because you'll have a solid back three behind that double pivot. You can defend it with a 3 and Zubi in front and let Alexis play a little bit higher, have Trent play high from right back and work from there. But Zubimendi's excellent, and if we were to sign him, he would be a very good player for us. The two then that I think are worth consideration: Richard Rios, the Colombian from Palmeiras. He's really, really good. Really, really good. Now, he's a different type of defensive midfielder. He is very good defensively, and he's aggressive, and he's clever, and he reads things well. But on the ball, he offers a little bit more he's a good passer. He's not a Zubimendi or Varela level of passer, but he's an exceptional ball carrier. And that's really interesting to me, having someone that can break the lines dribbling from midfield. Now, at times he can overplay. That's a concern. But he's a really interesting player. And he's been really good for Palmieri since going there. And doesn't seem to have a huge amount of... doesn't seem to have any kind of huge buyout clause or anything in his contract. His backstory is fascinating. Didn't play professional until he was like 19 or something. Like actual football. Was going to be a futsal player. And then switched codes. There's a good podcast on EPL Index about him. Go and listen to that. It's not about him, it's about the Copa in general, but go and listen to the part about him. I just think he's a really interesting one. He's not your standard type of defensive midfielder, but there's absolutely no doubt he could play that role at a very high level. It could be very cost effective as well, because I don't see a buyout in any of the articles about him when Palmieri signed him or otherwise. He has, I think, 1 year left with a club option for another year. So, the price might be a bit lower than his talent would suggest it should be. And then there's Yusuf Daishime. Now, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. I know I've heard the name said a bunch of times. I'm just blanking on it. Daishime, he is at Nice. He is from Burundi. Was at Istanbul Besiktas for a couple of years before joining Nice last summer. He is a monstrous defender. Not last summer, in the January of 22-23. He's a monstrous defensive midfielder. Now, he's, I think, quite similar to Thomas Partey in how he plays. That same type of physicality. He's a good passer of the ball. He's aggressive. He is exceptionally strong, like almost Wanyama levels of physical prowess. When Nice began last season on a tear and were like top 2, I think, in France, and had comfortably the best defensive record in the league, the two players that were primarily responsible for that was Todibo at centre-back, who was playing out of his mind, and this fella playing in midfield. He seemed to lose his place about 2/3 of the way through the season, and Nice collapsed. And I'm told it's because he picked up a thigh injury. Now, it looks like he tried to kind of work through it and play through it. Didn't really take any extended period. I think he missed 4 games or 5 games in one run, and that was it. But when you look at the games at the end of the season versus at the start of the season, he's clearly not the same player. He's clearly been limited by something. But he would tick a lot of boxes. I mean, he's 6'2", he's built like a tank. He's got a really strong sense of position. He's really aggressive. He can just monster people off the ball. He's comfortable picking the ball up and carrying it. He's comfortable flicking passes here, there, and everywhere. He can look a little bit robotic at times. Like, he's not the most fluid of athletes when he's dribbling past players. At times it can almost look like he doesn't fully have control of things, but at the same time, he always has control of things. He'd be an interesting one to go and get. Could also provide cover at centre-back. Nice paid €11 million in January 2023. I would guess somewhere in the 30 to 35 million range might get him now. The knock on him would be that he would have to go to AFCON in January's because he's from Burundi, but I mean, we've been dealing with AFCON issues for a long time. Now, the big issue for us is that our other defensive midfielder is Endo, who heads off to the Asian Cup, which is generally held at the same time as AFCON. So we'd actually be losing both. So that would be the one knock there. But as a player, I think he could be a very clever signing. And with the cost of him, it doesn't rule out in the future if you want to go and get, if a bigger name or a better defensive midfielder comes onto the market, or let's just say Varela takes a huge jump next season and all of a sudden now he's can't miss, you have to go and get him. Whereas right now you might just think, okay, well, he's really good, but we're not sure he's going to be 55 million worth of good or whatever. If you could go and get this guy for 30 and then Varela has a really strong season and then you decide next summer to go and trigger his buyout clause, it wouldn't be an issue to have a 30 million backup, and they could play together as well. Same with Zubimendi, same with him and Højlund might be a bit of a weird fit, and him and Ederson could be fun. Nobody's getting past them. They're just going to bully everybody. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good options there for that defensive midfield position. So when I see certain journalists say, well, there isn't a standout option, I just think you don't need a standout option. You really don't. I think people seem to think that when we signed Fabinho, he was already established as one of the best in the world, and he wasn't. He was very good for Monaco, but he was also a little bit inconsistent for Monaco. And he was playing a slightly different role to what we had in play. And it took him 6 months, if you remember, to get into the team and adapt to things. So I think we could afford to bring in a Varela, and even if it takes him a couple of months to adapt to life in England, adapt to the style of play, I think it'd absolutely be worthwhile. Same with Zubimendi. Same with Højlund, Hjulman, and same with Ederson. I think you can afford to bring any of them in, or Rios, or you're going to call him Yusuf, because I can't be arsed from the press that surname again, or whoever. Like, regards to the one I've named today, it's probably not a likely signing or a potential signing because he's probably going to go to United. But at the same time, maybe there's a chance that we will move from. Maybe there is a chance that we will move from. It's known that we've met with his agent, George Mendes, in recent weeks. What that was over, I'm not sure. It could have been about Lenny Yoro. It could have been about Reynate Nouri. It could be about anything. It could be about somebody completely different. It could be about him helping us secure a club in Portugal. It could be about anything. But I do think there's really good defensive midfield options out there who would improve us immensely. I mean, look how well we did last season with Endo in the team. Like, our record with Endo in the team was excellent last season. So there's no reason to think that bringing in a better defensive midfielder like the ones I've listed wouldn't mean that we would be even better. There's no suggestion that we could take a step back by improving that position. It's the most important thing we can do this summer. Now,
my dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
The following is a high-five moment from highfivecasino.com.
I won! Yahoo!
Private, put down your phone. This is the Army.
Sarge, High Five Casino is a social casino. It's on your phone. Goes wherever you go. I win free spins, cash, prizes, free daily rewards, over 1,200 games. I won again.
Platoon, present cell phone. High Five.
High Five.
Casino.
Casino.
Win at highfivecasino.com.
High Five Casino is a social casino. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Play responsibly. Conditions apply. See website for details.
High Five Casino.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit libertyshield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Moving on to left back. There's a piece on This Is Anfield I referenced on the Daily Red, and it is 6 left backs Liverpool could now sign in the transfer window. Now, this article begins with an incorrect premise that left back isn't a position in desperate need of an upgrade. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Can we all stop pretending that Andy Robertson hasn't declined significantly over the last 2.5 years? In Andy Robertson's last full season, he was responsible for 15 big chances because of his failure to hold the defensive line. 15. Andy Robertson has become a liability at left back. I know it'll pain people because they want to believe that Klopp team of 2017 to 2022 would still be capable of doing bits. This is the same nonsense that had people fawning over Henderson when he'd been useless for years. The same nonsense that had people fawning over Milner. The same nonsense that had people blindly trying to claim that Bobby Firmino and Sadio Mane had not declined significantly. The same nonsense that had people last season saying, we really should have kept Fabinho after he'd been dreadful for a year and was really struggling in the Saudi Pro League. Players age, players decline. Andy Robertson was magnificent for us for a long time. But unfortunately for Andy Robertson, he got overplayed, and the role he plays required everything to be done at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And too many miles are put in his legs. And now, at the age of 30, he is no longer good enough to be starting for Liverpool. If you look at from when he arrived, the first season he plays 30 games because it takes him a few months to get into the team. Bear in mind, when we signed Andy Robertson, there were meltdowns over us signing a fella from Hull who'd just been relegated. And when he didn't play for the first few months and Albi Moreno was playing, the tinfoil hat brigade were loving life, telling everybody that Robertson was another player Klopp didn't want, forced on him by FSG. And now they pulled the little plums thinking about him. 30 games the first season, then 48, 49, 50, and 47. Right? That brings his first 5 seasons. Then he plays 43 in 22-23. He was dreadful. Last season he played 30. He had some injuries. He was largely very poor. That's 297 games for Liverpool over 7 years. In that same time, he has played 62 games for Scotland. So you're talking about 360 games, well, 359, but 360 games over 7 seasons. That's 51 point whatever per season for a player that does everything at 1,000,000 miles an hour. A player whose pace is one of his best attributes, whose intensity is one of his best attributes, whose physicality is one of his best attributes. His decision-making has gone rapidly downhill. Defensively, he's fallen off a cliff. Andy Robertson is no longer good enough to be starting for us. And he's 30, he has 2 years left in his contract, and we really should be looking to move him on. Kostas Tsimikas has never been good enough to be a starter. And if you want to argue that Joe Gomez played well enough last year to warrant being first choice this year and can be that defensive left back, then, fair enough, but what happens when he gets injured? Because if he gets injured and you have to bring in Robbo or Kostas, you're immediately changing how the team lines up. Because neither of them can do that defensive role. Neither of them are good enough or disciplined enough defensively to do that role. We need a left back. Now, if you want an attacking left back, and the premise of this article looks at kind of attacking traditional left-backs in the Robertson mould, it's a decent list. Rayan Aït-Nouri of Wolves, last season arguably the best left-back in the league, 23 years of age. He's been in the Premier League now, I think, for 4 years. He's a very good player. There has been some reports from an Algerian reporter that we do have a strong interest in him, that he wants to leave Wolves this summer and that we would be in pole position. David Lynch says because he's been linked so frequently, and obviously us having a great relationship with his agency, there could definitely be something in that. Pervis Estupiñán, he's a really good player. He's 26 years of age. I think not last season, the season before, 22-23, he was one of the two best left-backs in the league, along with Nathan Ake. He was outstanding going forward, and that pairing with him and Matoma was tremendous. Last season, he suffered multiple injuries, and it remains to be seen how he bounces back from that. He didn't have a particularly good season when he was fit. Big part of that was he didn't have Matoma in front of him, didn't have that same caliber of partner, and that's what he really does thrive with, is that combination with the winger, which is obviously something that Robbo used to thrive with Sadio and struggled with Diaz. So how would a Estupiñán blend with Diaz if Diaz is the starting left winger? In terms of prior injury history, check, I don't think he's had a huge amount. Not that I remember anyway, but he was playing in Spain for a couple of years. So it's not great. 17-18, he misses 8 games. 18-19, he misses 13. Didn't miss any in 19-20. 20-21, he missed 12 games. 21-22 and 22-23 injury-free. But then last season, he missed 27 games. So, you know, it does all add up, and he is a player that relies entirely on his own pace and his explosiveness. So that could be a reason for concern, but he is a very good player. Anthony Robinson, I'm just not keen. I just don't think he's very good. I think he's good, but I think he's a mid-table player. I think he's a good mid-table player. I don't think he's any more than that. I know he does well against us. Have you ever watched him against Brentford or Brighton or West Ham or Palace or Forest? He just doesn't perform the same level. So he'd be a pass from me. Piero Hincapié. Now, this is more of a defensive one. We'll come back to him. Milos Kerkez, 20 years of age, first season in the Premier League last year with Bournemouth. And I think he struggled initially and then in time really found his form, found his feet, improved defensively, and was offering quite a bit going forward. Now, the idea here is that he would become a potential long-term replacement for Robertson. That suggests that this person thinks Andy Robertson could play next season, the season after, and maybe even the season after that, which is fucking mind-blowing to me. Like, have we not watched him play for the last 2.5 years? Like, seriously. He has become a distinct liability at left-back. And that's an issue that needs to be resolved this summer. Left-back is our second biggest need after defensive midfield. And the only reason it's second is because Virgil's good enough as the left side centre-back to carry a mediocre left-back. Now, there is then the option of that centre-back type of left-back, like a Nathan Ake, like a Josko Gvardiol, who could play that role. My first choice would have been Calafiori, but it looks like he will go to Arsenal. I'm guessing the injuries scared us off if we were interested. Richard Hughes was linked with him previously when he was at Bournemouth. Tried to get him before Bologna did. So clearly there's a fondness of the player there. So Hincapié is a really obvious solution here. And he can play in a multitude of positions, but defensively he is outstanding. And he's comfortable on the ball. He can offer you some attacking threat, but he would improve us immensely defensively. Can play centre-back, though he is a little bit short to be Liverpool centre-back. Can play defensive midfield. Has played as a wing-back, which will tell you he's more than comfortable on the ball. I think Hincapié makes a lot of sense. 22 years of age as well, so, all of his best football is ahead of him. Castello Luqueba of Leipzig would be the next one to look at. He's got enormous potential. He's tremendous on the ball, but he's also great defensively. And moved to Leipzig for 34 million euro last summer. I think his buyout's in around the 70 million mark, which might be a little bit high. I don't even know if his buyout's active this summer, but he would be a player that would be of, like, when we talk about players that could be special, he's one of them. He's who Leipzig went to replace Gvardiol. That's the level of player they saw in him. And they tend to be very, very good at this type of thing. So he's one that would make a lot of sense as that defensive left-back. Again, a little bit small to play as a centre-back for us, but could fill in a pinch. Very comfortable on the ball. Like, very, very comfortable carrying the ball. Good passer. Defensively, he's not quite at Hincapié's level yet, but he's a year younger and has absolutely the potential to get there. Joel Hato of Ajax, he's very young, he's only 18, but he's been kind of preordained as the next great Dutch footballer for a couple of years now. He's been in the Ajax first team for the better part of 2 seasons. Comfortable on the ball, good defender, again, can play centre-back, but is a bit short for what we like in our centre-backs. I think he's one that could make sense. It would all depend on price. I wouldn't be paying it much over 30 million for him because the Eredivisie's trash, and I tend not to want to take too big a risk on players from crap leagues. But there's no questioning that there's serious amounts of talent there. Is he ready? Probably not. Like Hincapié and Luqueba, you could see walking in and on day one being starters. I don't think you could with him. I think you could with Inacio. I've seen some people suggest that Goncalo Inacio is not good enough defensively. I don't agree. I think he's not the quickest player in the world, but he's certainly not slow. The way he defends in Amorim's back three, I think would suit well into the kind of system we're talking about. If you're looking for that defensive left back who forms a back three with Ibu and Virgil, he's the best passer we're going to get for that position by a country mile. Like, he's an exceptional passer to football. And if you had him at left back and Trent at right back, you could have someone like Ugarte in midfield and you'd still be well above average in terms of progressive passing because of the two fullbacks, Virgil and Alexis in midfield. William Pacho, another option. He's very good. He's a better defensive player than he is on the ball right now, but there's definite promise on the ball. He's a little bit stiff, is my only concern. So I do wonder, is he a fluid enough athlete to go and play as a fullback? That would be the one concern I'd have with him. Other than that, again, a lot of it is coaching, a lot of it is age. He'll develop. He'll gain more confidence in himself. I could see a world in which he becomes a very good passer of the ball, but not a dynamic ball carrier type, which I think Hincapié and Luqueba in particular could be. Hato could be for sure. I think he could be more of an Inacio type of passer from that position. And he does defend in the back three at Eintracht. So there's no real concern in that regard. I think he would be comfortable enough there. Outside of them, I've only got one more. Actually, I tell a lie, I've got two more. The first one we'll go with is Otavio at Porto. Not the winger type of fella that was there for a long time. This is the centre-back. Very comfortable at left-back. Very, very comfortable at left-back. Now, the issue there is Porto only bought him in January. So I don't know if they'd be willing to sell him already, but he is a big, big talent. And his release clause is about £40 million. So you could bypass them and go and get him in that regard. 22 years of age, 6'2". He could play centre-back for us, I think. But he's really good. Really, really good. He was at Famalicão for half a season. He's been with Porto half a season. And he was one of the best defenders in the Portuguese league in literally 23 games he played. But would be well worth consideration. And the other one's another Brazilian. It's Murillo at Nottingham Forest. Now, he's probably as good a passer long range as Inacio. Short range, not quite as crisp. Maybe a little bit of a focus issue there. I do think he's a better defender than Inacio. I think he'd be confident enough playing that left-sided role. He's a great ball carrier. And he's a physical beast. Like, he's 6 foot, but he's about 6 foot wide as well. Only had the one season with Forest, but I thought he was really good. He was named their Player of the Year. There has been talk that he would be interested in the move. I think he has said he would be interested in the move. Forest were early in the window supposedly demanding, 70 million for him. I'd imagine that comes down a bit as we get closer to the end of the window, because Forest will have to balance their books again because of the risk of PSR violations, which, they've already had one. They don't really want to get another one. Murillo would make a ton of sense for us. And he's only 22 as well. So, all of his best football is going to be ahead of him. We were linked with Murillo before he moved to Forest. So it could be a player that we have long-term interest in. I think he's one that could make sense. So I think there's more options for that defensive, Aki, Guardiola mould of left-back than the attack-minded ones. But there's good options either way. There's other left-back names you could throw out there, but they're probably not realistic. Names like Nuno Mendes, but probably not realistic to get him. And I think the injury he had probably makes, because of what type of injury it was, where he did the ruptured, was it a ruptured hamstring tendon? I think it was a ruptured hamstring tendon. I remember talking to Marty Loughran about it, and he said that's just kind of one that you avoid. If you can, you just avoid going for those type of players, because the risk of reoccurrence is quite high, and also because it can just fundamentally change how they play. And there's no question Nuno Mendes is not the same player he was pre-injury. It's also the injury that Alejandro Balde is dealing with. So 2 of the best young left-backs on the planet, potentially not going to be as good as we hoped they would be. You could throw in Theo Hernandez's name, but I just don't see that as being a realistic option for us. I do think we'll go for more of that defensive left-back, because if you look at what Arne Slot did at Feyenoord, he had a defensive full-back and an attacking full-back. Gertruda was the defensive full-back, Hartmann was the attacking full-back. Trent is not going to be a defensive full-back, he's going to be an attacking one, so it makes sense then to put the defensive one on the left for us. Also, with Feyenoord, their left side centre-back was Hanko, who's comfortable enough defending in the channel. Ours is Virgil, who's not going to be comfortable there. Well, Virgil can do whatever he wants, but it's not the ideal use of him. Whereas Ibu's ideal defending in the channel on the right, so it makes sense for us to switch that defensive system around. And also, if you look at our current wing options, Mo makes more sense in the Paxio role of that sort of narrower, almost a second number 10. And Diaz makes more sense in that Minta out-and-out winger type role. So I think it'll be more of a defensive left-back. I think he will look to switch the Feyenoord shape around. What was right will now be left. Right, look, I was going to do more today. I was going to do centre-backs. I was going to do both wingers. I'll save them for later in the week and do another one of them, because I'm just conscious that I don't want to be rattling away for an hour or whatever. So I will leave it there. That's my suggestions for left-back options and midfield options, and just kind of to go over a few of them, because I think when people look at the markets, they say, well, there's, or if they see someone say, oh, there's not a great market, they tend to just go, okay, that's the reason, when I just don't think it's true. I think there's strong markets out there in terms of defensive midfield and in terms of left back that I think we should be looking to move into. So I'll be back later in the week. I'll be doing Daily Red, obviously, every day. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.